Yeah, that is my role. Yeah, I'm head of marketing at GT globally. I'm based out of the UK, but spent quite a bit of time this year in America. And yeah, I do have to like pinch myself when I tell people that, or I have a little giggle to myself when I say that, or like when people ask for my email address and I say it's, me at gtbicycles.com. I still, 12-year-old me with my first GT BMX would kind of not believe like where I'm at today relative to that kind of journey with the brand. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty trippy, but also it comes, it's that old Spider-Man thing, right? With great power comes great responsibility,
Mhm.
and it's also pretty tough, like especially now where the industry is in such tough times and everybody knows that marketing budgets are, constrained to be like the custodian of such an iconic brand, or one of the custodians. Obviously, it's not just me. There's a whole management team at GT. To be one of the people steering the ship and one of the people responsible for the decisions that are being made at such a iconic brand is also some days quite intimidating. Like I get up and I'll be like, oh my God, I've got to do that today. And that's such a big thing that's going to make such a big difference to the trajectory or the future of the brand that the decisions are pretty big. So sometimes I'm like, oh, please let me get it right.
Yeah.
If I
No,
mess this up, Gary Turner will forever scorn me.
yeah, no, definitely, and especially, I think when you're as passionate about bikes and racing and whatever else, like we've always been, you do want to do a good job and you want to get it right and not mess up because there's a lot of fallback on those decisions that you're making, that goes in tons of different directions all over the world for a brand.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think many people get out of bed in the morning and think, well, I want to go and do a shit job. But I think a lot of people are happy getting out of bed in the morning and plodding along. And I think that in a job like mine and many, yours and many other people, like you can't plod along doing this stuff. You have to really push it and really drive it. And actually, I'd probably like this year working for GT with the couple of weeks that I've taken off, week earlier on in the year, snowboarding with the family, and then a week in the summer having a little holiday. I've worked more events and weekends than I've taken off. Like we're nearly in November, and actually I've got my full holiday entitlement still to kind of try and take this year because I've worked so much, and
Yeah.
because I work for GT being based in California, and I've got four people on my team, and they're based in California, Utah, and Vermont. So
Mhm.
they come online at different times of the day, but generally I am, my day kind of starts properly at probably 3 or 4 p.m. UK time, because that's when like Utah, California, Vermont, they come online.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very different working day, and quite often, like last night, I was on a call with Win and Jason, who's our MD, and we finished at 9 p.m. But that's just part of it. However, it's also still really exciting. Like I don't think, oh shit, I've got a call tonight at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
I think, wow, I've got a really important call this morning tonight, and it's just part of the process. So
Yeah. It's just
yeah.
it's a different way of running a job, isn't it? When I was running the team, there was plenty of times where I could go out for a bike ride in the off season or whatever. But like you say, I might be doing something in the evening, talking to someone from a different part of the world, and yeah, it's just a kind of 24/7 sort of 365-day a year job. It's
Yeah,
but if you're into it and you're excited about it, that doesn't matter, does it?
yeah. There's that old saying: if you love what you do, you never really work a day in your life. I get the sentiment. I mean, it feels like work, especially like when we're in the US and we're doing events. We're kind of going back to what I was doing in my 20s. With Cannondale, going to an event, setting up the tents, getting the bikes out, setting everything up, giving people demo rides, talking to people. So all that stuff, doing it again this year, and I haven't sort of done it for a while, feels feels really good actually reconnecting with everybody, going to those events and bringing the brand along. You know, GT is a brand in North America where we've been doing this big tour this year, the Fast Lines and Good Times tour. You know, GT hasn't kind of been on the road for years. So we, got the trailer and the van all wrapped up with the new look and feel of the brand, and we went and did all the big bike festivals, and we went to visit a lot of dealers, and we can look and see that when we went to visit a dealer, and bearing in mind me and Steve Spencer in the US, who was mainly doing the tour, and Benny, our digital marketing guy, when we would go to a store after that visit, you could see that sales in that store really picked up.
Yeah,
Like they were either doing not a lot and all of a sudden did something, or they did quite a bit and then did a lot. So
yeah,
just going and visiting dealers, not even as salespeople, just going and telling them what was happening with the brand, and showing them products that maybe they hadn't seen, and telling them why we were in town or why we were passing because we were going to these big events. That really resonated well with dealers in the US. And actually, you know, a lot of them said that they hadn't seen anybody from any bike brand since COVID. Like after COVID, when everything went virtual,
yeah,
like they just had people just don't walk in the shops anymore. Reps or people that work for the companies, they're
yeah,
just not out there like getting in front of the dealers.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, we could harp on about the difficulty of the industry again, like I've done on, lots of different interviews with people. But obviously, you rode for GT back in the day on BMX, and GT's, for people of our age, is a super iconic brand. GT was huge in BMX racing in the 80s and, right through. And then, when I got into mountain biking in the sort of mid 90s, the first proper bike I bought was a GT because, it was an iconic brand. And then my first suspension bike was a GT. And then obviously then moving forward, started racing the being interested in the downhill World Cups. And, you had people like Nicholas Rulio and Mike King, Steve Peat, all these super high profile riders that rode for GT and won all those, titles. And the brand was, super cool and in the forefront of, people's minds to buy those GT bikes. And then, once the GT program got into trouble when I don't know, early 2000s, I guess it was when the team went under, and then the brand has not gone away, but it's kind of changed, and the industry moves on quickly, and more people, new people get into the sport, whether it's kids or adults coming into mountain biking because it's growing all the time. And you've got to keep, it doesn't matter how much heritage you've got with your bike brand. I think, you have to keep it relevant, like you say, like going out to do demo days, dealer showings, ride outs, race teams, all that is what builds your brand to then people want that brand. And in every single area in the country or the world, you need to have representatives on that brand to, make that brand relevant to the people in that area to think, oh, that's a nice bike. But if they're not seeing them
Mm.
on the ground, they're not interested in it. This,
Yeah, yeah. As you touched on, the bike industry, has been in meltdown for a few years, and I think a lot of people thought that 2024 was going to be a big clear out year, and that 2025 would be back to some sort of normality, whatever the new normal is going to be for the bike industry, because we don't know what that's going to look like, right? If you look around, a lot of brands have closed offices and centralized everything, cut costs. So when the bike industry does kind of come out the other side, I don't, I probably don't see it going back to how it was. It will be a different industry. But in this time of turmoil, we are strategically repositioning and fundamentally changing GT from where it was to where we want it to be. So actually, a lot of that is kind of happening under the radar because the bike industry is so messy anyway. a
Right.
lot of people are not really laser focused on what we're doing. Whereas if it was a normal market, what we're doing might be a bit more noticeable. But we're basically, couple of years, 2019, all of the Durrell sports brands. So that was GT, Cannondale, Schwinn, Mongoose, Calloy. They got bought by a Dutch company called Pon,
Yep.
and Pon, who are our current owners. They're a really interesting company. They were like after World War II, Ben Pon, who's the grandfather of the people that run it currently, is a private company. He went to Germany and uh, went to VW and said that he wanted to buy VW Beetles and ship them on trains into the Netherlands. And Pon actually was the first ever VW distributor outside of Germany. And they still distribute VW products in the Netherlands today and other parts of the world. So it's a super interesting business. But they bought the Durrell sports brands and brought them into their existing bike portfolio, which is Santa Cruz, Cervelo, One Up Components. So they were already Gazella, which is obviously one of the biggest bike brands in Europe. So they had this existing bike portfolio. They brought our portfolio in, which really makes Pon one of, if not the biggest bike companies in the world, collection of bike companies. And then obviously we had the crazy COVID spike, and then obviously the massive, post-COVID crash. So so luckily for us, Pon have got a lot of other businesses, so that when the bike industry isn't doing so good, it's okay because they've got other diversified interests. But when we were bought by Pon, it took Pon a little while to figure out like where they wanted to position the brands and so on. And as I'm sure you know, and a lot of people in the bike industry know, GT and Cannondale were kind of sister companies for at least kind of 10 to 15 years. And GT was based out of the same offices in Connecticut. So when they bought it, GT ended up in a category called Pond Performance. So we were actually put with Santa Cruz, Cervelo, One Up, and that was mainly because Joe Graney, who I'm sure you know, who was heading up Santa Cruz at the time, he had a GT as a kid, had a soft spot for the brand, and wanted it, and basically wanted it in his sort of part of the business. And then he recruited Jason Shears, who is the managing director of GT, to run the brand. Jason was the founder of Envy Composites, so he's got a incredible history in the bike game. So Jason came in to run it with Joe under Joe's guidance, sat in this new part of the business alongside these other brands. And the first thing that Jason did was he went out to Connecticut where the brand was, and he kind of got the size of it. And the first decision that he made, significant decision, was moving the company back to California. So he separated it out from the business that it had been in for 10, 15 years with Cannondale, and took it back to California, set up our own little space in one of the Pont offices, which is actually a shared office with Cervelo. And basically for the last couple of years, like trying to get through all this mess of inventory and everything else, but also just steering the brand in the direction that he wanted it to be. So GT, even though it's always had like the Athertons and winning the downhill stuff, I know what you mean about that break. There was, you know, I mean, GT, like many brands in the bike industry, had that like early 2000 financial troubles, and then they had a break, and then came back with a bang with the Athertons and had a real strong like 5 year streak of winning World Cups and so on. So yeah, it's been a bit of a ride, and it still continues to be a bit of a ride. But bottom line is that we're sort of our new goal is that when you go out to buy a new bike, you'd be looking at two or three bikes that you're all hot for, and one of them would be the GT.
So what is, obviously the heritage of GT was BMX and then mountain bike. Um, in current times, what's the sort of not percentage, but how much time and effort is put into the BMX over, a gravel bike, over a mountain bike trail bike, over a downhill bike, over an e-bike? how is all that managed? And which bikes do you think do you aim for the ones that you feel like you're going to sell the most of in the future, or how does all that process go?
To answer that question specifically, no, we don't. And the reason I say that is because GT for the last 10 years has done very well making, halfway decent hardtails at, five or $600 and then being sold in America through places like Dick's Sporting Goods, which is, not a specialist bike shop, but a very good, sports store, right? And for us to sort of get the brand where we want it to be, I guess in the UK that would be the equivalent of maybe Halfords, but I know Halfords isn't sort of a sporting place, but it's being in having the bikes in Dick's in the US to US IBDs and US high-end consumers was a little bit like having the brand in Halfords in the UK. So it's not it that product at that price really fits well there,
Yeah,
but it affects what you can do elsewhere. So, independent bike dealers might not want to stock it if it's in those other chains. And our goal is to make, amazing bikes that are sold through amazing bike shops that people have an amazing ride experience on. So we did have to make some difficult decisions, and we actually pulled out of, lots and lots of profitable business to sort of change this trajectory. But we also took the decision to get out of product and markets that weren't the future for the brand. So a couple of years ago, we would have had a big range of hybrid bikes, for commuters and whatnot.
yeah,
We're not continuing with those. We will have a bit of a cool pub bike, but in terms of an urban offering, we're not an urban brand. GT is a dirt brand. We were born in the dirt in 1972. Gary Turner built the first BMX for his son Craig, and that's really where we shine in the dirt. So mountain bike, BMX, BMX freestyle, which arguably isn't in the dirt, but it's still that radical side of the sport. Yeah, and gravel. So that's going to be our focus.
oh, cool, cool.